Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Cajon City Council meeting. The meeting is now called to order. I'd like to ask the city clerk to call the roll. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing after that for a brief moment of silence? And Mr. Garbo, would you lead us in the pledge, please? The city clerk posted orders of adjournment of the December 11th, 2018 meeting and the agenda of the January 8th, 2019 meeting in accordance with state law, council, and housing authority policy. We have a few presentations today. The first one is from the U.S. Census Bureau. I'd like to invite Alejandro Aguilar to the podium. Mr. Aguilar, welcome.
First, I would like to thank the City of El Cajon for inviting me to speak here. And let's go ahead and start. So the road to 2020. So my name is Alejandro Aguilar. I'm a partnership specialist with the U.S. Census Bureau. In the 2020 census, what's important to us is to count everyone once, only once, and in the right place. Why do we do a census? So if you look at Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution, the actual enumeration shall be made within 3 years after the meeting, the first meeting of Congress of the United States, and within every subsequent term of the 10 years, such manner as shall be directed. A law directs. And the other big reason is the key purpose is appropriating of the U.S. House of Representatives. And why does the 2020 census matter? So a lot of the funding which goes into it with the congressional representation, the reapportionment and redistricting, the $675 billion distributed annually, funding distributed based on population, over $76 billion each year for the state, approximately 2,000 per Californian counted. Federal funding. So census data informs how the $675 billion is distributed annually among local, state, and tribal governments for our programs like transportation, job training, schools, seniors and fosters care centers, and also housing. And the goals for 2020 census is to maintain the quality, reduce costs. The 4 years of innovation is effectivity in building an address list. Easy ways to respond, better use of information we already have, and more effective field operations. So this is the first time we're actually going to do a new way for people to self-response. And the new ability is going to be the internet. It's going to be kind of like a phone center. It's going to have about 13 languages. It's going to be the old-fashioned way, which is the paper form, and also in person. We're going to have kiosks located within like for instance, El Cajon, different cities, and we're going to have so that way people can actually walk in and self-response if they have worries or questions about how to fill it out. So the impact to El Cajon. So 74% of El Cajon census male participation rate in 2010. So that's about 76 of El Cajon folk, and requiring follow-up of census enumerators in 2010. So the impact estimated is, let's just say 1,000 that people that don't self-respond, let's say in El Cajon. So an estimate would be about 1,000. If you do that times 1.95, which is how much per person, you're looking at about $2 million in a decade. And the impact also is that Cajon has 2 hard-to-count census tracts in a population of about 11,000. The participant rate is lower than 70%. The populations are also communities of color, children under 5, tribal members, rural communities. And how can we work together in ensuring the complete count of 2020? So the best way is to identify a community organization in your city that would work directly with the hard-to-count population and who can partner with to conduct outreach, incorporate census outreach and education efforts in the existing communities' engagements, collaboration in the Cajon, diverse stakeholders to deliver tried and tested messages, and utilize the leverage existing in city infrastructure and resources. And another thing, so right now we're actually recruiting very highly right now. We have about 1,500 jobs to fill within the county of San Diego, and about 500 within the area of El Cajon. This basically the east side of the San Diego County. And the Community Partnership and Engagement Program. So basically what we're doing here is what we want is to educate the people in the 2020 census and foster cooperative with the enumerators, encourage community partners, and to motivate people to self-respond. Engage grassroots organizations and reach out to the hard-to-count groups and those who aren't motivated in response to the national campaign. So another thing for what we want to do with El Cajon is to create what's called the Complete Count Committee. And the background of this is the structure is kind of like it's going to be a group of people within the city of El Cajon that covers like governments, medias, education, workforce, development, business, other based and needs. But this is kind of like a sample of what it's going to look like when we actually create the complete count within El Cajon. So we're going to have different heads of different departments. For instance, you guys would have a designee from El Cajon, and we would have like public officials, deputies, other CBOs, and also grassroots organizations within El Cajon. So right now, we're in the key timeline right now, we're actually in the education phase. So what that means is we're trying to educate the public, and in that way we can help move towards the awareness phase. But first, we have to educate the public to be able to do that. And we have from now to about April. And the other thing, so this is something I researched for you guys. So in 2020 census, the questionnaire will now have the separate Middle Eastern and North American categories. And the reason being is the Census Bureau follows the Office of Management and Budget, Race and Ethnicity Standards. More research and testing is needed before we can proceed to implement the purpose to implement and separate Middle Eastern and North American categories. We have only tested the MENA category as an ethnicity in a combined question format, not in a separate question format. The Census Bureau will continue to further an extensive research on how to collect accurate race and ethnicity data across its surveys. Any questions?
Let me see if there's any questions. Thank you for the report. Council, any questions? Looks like you did a good job. Got us all educated.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yes, we have a substantial Middle Eastern population in El Cajon. So are you saying that will not be included in the census
just
question?
when you're actually checking the box of your race and ethnicity, that box won't be located there. But what will be located is the other. And that's why as part of the education part would be to make sure that they fill out properly. And that way, so when they actually get the results from the diseño, they can actually make a better assumption about putting that onto the next census going forward. And there's also a census between every 10 years, and there's census in between the 10 years. So there's always a lot of surveys. So that just means that for right now, it's not going to be on the decennial, but it will be going forward after this testing process. So basically, that's why the education part's important, because if we educate the public and educate their race and ethnicity to make sure they fill out their self-response in the correct way.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Next, we have a presentation from Forester Creek. Miss Sarah Hutmacher is an associate director there, and she's here today to share with us. How do you say your last name properly?
Hutmacher, you had it.
Okay.
Thanks. Mr. Mayor, council members, good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I'm Sarah Hutmacher, the Associate Director of the San Diego River Park Foundation. I'm here because we recently had an opportunity to partner with the City of El Cajon on a project here, and I'm here to share a little bit about this opportunity and seek any guidance or input from the council as we move forward with the project. So, just a teeny bit of background. The River Park Foundation is a nonprofit organization dedicated to enhancing the San Diego River and its tributaries and the quality of life of the people living along the San Diego River. You may have heard of some of our programs, including trash cleanup, park and trail advocacy, youth environmental education, volunteer engagement, and community outreach. Our experience on the main stem of the San Diego River has really convinced us that it's possible to connect people in the communities to natural resources through interpretation, art, service projects, parks, and other things like that. On the river, this work has really resulted in benefits to water quality, public health, public safety, and improved aesthetic values, as well as a lot of economic value to the neighborhoods along the San Diego River. Since we were founded in 2001, our organization has really had only limited work in El Cajon, but we've always believed that El Cajon's a really important part of our watershed, in part because Forester Creek is a main tributary that runs right through the central part of El Cajon and into the San Diego River. That said, Forester Creek doesn't necessarily have what you might picture as a creek. So most of Forester Creek looks like this. It's in a concrete channel. A lot of it's behind fences. Some of it's underground. And in partnership with city staff, we saw potential for improving Forester Creek in El Cajon. So when the State Department of Water Resources and the San Diego County Water Authority announced a funding opportunity to invest in some community planning efforts along water bodies, we thought that this was an opportunity to benefit both the water quality and the community in El Cajon. We applied for and were awarded funding for a planning project. So with the City of El Cajon and the Earth Discovery Institute as our project partners, we were awarded a $320,000 grant to do some planning in El Cajon. So this is, as I said, a planning project, but there will be implementation rounds in the future. So this is important groundwork, we believe, to help make El Cajon more competitive for future funding. So we're here today because we're in the planning, just the startup phase of this project, that we're in the background and making sure we're doing our research and our diligence. So we wanted to bring it to the council and get your guidance and feedback as we move forward into the phase one, which will include soliciting community input on recreation needs and concerns, working with city staff, conducting awareness surveys, collecting data in the creek itself on the trash, the types of trash and the sources, and doing some environmental education with students in El Cajon. So all of that information will inform a second phase, phase two of the project, where we will produce a recreation access plan. We're going to be working with Cal Poly Pomona's 606 program to do that. They're here today to tell you a little bit about their project. And we will be engaging a consultant in developing a trash capture and reduction plan for the creek itself. So I know this is a super, super brief summary, but in the interest of time, mostly what we want to walk away with is helping to impart the goals of the project. So really what we're trying to do is support the goals of the City of El Cajon for recreation, park development, and stormwater management. We want to help do the planning that supports future investment in El Cajon in those future implementation and construction rounds of the project. We're hoping to engage community leaders like you. We're hoping to work with the community to develop a roadmap for improving the health of Forester Creek and its ability to contribute to the community in a positive way. The River Park Foundation spearheaded a similar planning effort back in 2002 on the main stem of the San Diego River, and that conceptual plan, we hired Studio 606 at that time, and the plan that they developed was the framework for the San Diego River Conservancy, a state agency that we helped form to help advocate and raise awareness for the San Diego River. And that plan, the work of our organization, the work of the Conservancy has really resulted in tens of millions of dollars being invested in the San Diego River Park. So we really believe in the planning part. It's an opportunity to collaborate with other NGOs and with city staff, with other city leaders, to make sure that we have a plan for something that might ultimately result in impact and investment in El Cajon. So as I said, we've worked with Studio 606. Alex Haudegui is going to talk a little bit about their project. Alex?
Thank you, Sarah, for the introduction. Like she said, my name is Alexander Haudegui, and this is my classmate,
Brian Neshik.
And we are students from Cal Poly Pomona's 606 studio. So the 606 studio, I want to describe a little bit about who we are and what we've done, the work that we're capable of, and then how excited we are to be working with this community, especially on the project that we've been chosen for this year. So the 606 studio is the culminating experience for students in the Master's Landscape Architecture Department at Cal Poly Pomona. It's meant to be a culminating experience that tests the aptitude in all performative ways that the students were meant to acquire along their journeys throughout the education, and has resulted, as Sarah said, in many different projects that are very much reacting to the circumstances and the situation in which they're placed. So since 1976, we've had over 100 different projects that have been completed. I'd like to kind of take a minute to focus on two of those, which we've done in the last few years, that kind of show a little bit of the breadth and the spectrum of possibilities in which those projects are completed. So the first project that we're looking at happened in 2017. And so this is on the lower Los Angeles River. Both of these projects will be, and this kind of focuses more on a design-build kind of project. So small scale, focusing on installations that we're creating community spaces along the Los Angeles River to create a better sense of connection, which is very important, but also is very different from our next project, which was the Collective Efforts, which a project in 2015, which is a much larger scale regional planning effort meant to focus on targeting grant funding as opposed to a design product by the end of its completion. This is more in lines with the Recreational Access Plan that we'll be happy to be working on for the rest of this year. I'd also like to take a minute to say that we're beginning the very basic stages of data collection and information requesting, so I'd like to hand it over to my classmate Brian to talk about that.
We wanted to provide a brief overview of what we are currently doing in regards to Forester Creek. Right now, the 606 team is focused on listening and collecting data on the creek, as well as looking at the local planning documents. Using a combination of computer software, on-site field work, and the future community engagement, we will be furthering our knowledge of the area. On the screen is a list of initial research subjects that we plan on looking into. These topics include physical aspects, social and cultural aspects, as well as additional factors that look into how recreation affects economics and transportation and walkability of the area. This is our initial list, and we know that you guys are the experts in this area, so we welcome your input on anything we might have missed.
Thank you. And those are really an opportunity to share some of the projects that the students and the faculty from Cal Poly Pomona are capable of. And this is really a process where we're hoping to spend a lot of time collecting information. So that's partly why we're here. Moving forward, we've scheduled a community input meeting on February 26th. We're conducting surveys in the community now. We've got some field trips that are scheduled with Anza Elementary and a couple of other elementary schools in El Cajon. We are also doing data collection in cooperation with the Public Works Department in the creek itself. So as we continue in this phase of the project, we're really just here to share what we're starting, get any feedback. We would love the opportunity to meet with you or your staff if you have any feedback for us that might be more appropriate in a meeting or sometime other, but we can also, I've got my pen right now. And then last, of course, we would love the opportunity to come back sometime later in the year to present, the results of some of our community input.
Well, okay.
Thank you.
Actually, a very impressive presentation. Thank you very much. Let me see if there's any questions on the council. And just are you with Cal Pomona as well?
No, I'm the associate director of the San Diego River Park Foundation. So we've hired Cal Poly Pomona.
Wonderful. What year are you guys in?
We're in our third year, which is the last year of the Master's in Landscape Architecture program. So.
Very good. It's very impressive. Okay, let's just start down the road. Gary, do you have a question?
No question.
Bob?
Yes, I know in the past we've had a problem of, we've had some dry years in El Cajon especially. And we've had a number of times, I think, that there's been homeless living in the culverts, that the roads, they have like an overpass, and then there's like a square culvert underneath. And we've had homeless living in there. And I know that our staff has addressed some of that sometimes, but it's been a problem in the past. And I don't know how bad it is anymore, but probably the chief could answer that. But I know that in the past, because I've been on the council a while, and I remember a lot of those things. So you might visit with the chief and ask him if that's still a major problem, because I know we've had some wet weather. I don't know if they're still there, but I know we've had a number of times that they've rooted them out and cleaned it up, and so that's something that we need to be aware of, and
Thank you.
maybe try and address that to where we can keep them out of there in
Certainly.
some form.
Yeah, that's great feedback. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ed? Anybody? Steve?
One of the things that probably many people in El Cajon don't know is that our city staff does a great job of prioritizing keeping Forester Creek channels clear. I found out last year that if silt or dirt accumulates, and if an endangered species of plant happens to take root and grow, we can't tear that plant out of Forester Creek at that point. That requires a whole new set of permits and clearances and government things because we didn't keep the channel clean. So our public works and city staff does a great job of kind of scooping up the silt and the dirt to make sure we don't get in that situation. So we're really vested in keeping that channel clean. And our city staff does a great job of knowing what to do.
I agree. Yeah, the city staff has been really incredible to work with. So we appreciate the opportunity to see if we can help add value to the work that they're doing.
All right. Yeah, I think we grabbed it. Was it 120 tons of stuff we took out of the creek last year?
I'm looking to our public works director. I can't recall the figure I sent you.
If you had paid attention to the state of the city, you would know. Yeah, I believe it was, what was it, 120? Yeah, it was a bunch. I remember the 120 tons of debris taken out of the.
It's significant. Hopefully, one of the reasons why, we're the environmental organization, we're bringing in an expert in the recreation planning. And part of that is, as you said, to try and impact the water quality and those concerns that if, more people care, more people have eyes on the creek, it might have positive impacts on that as well.
All right. Well, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, if you need to meet with myself, or I'm sure any of the other council members would be happy to meet with you if that would be helpful to you, and good luck in your project.
Thank you.
All right. Our last presentation is from the International Rescue Committee, and I would like to invite our senior program manager to the podium. Hi.
Hi. Thank you, Mayor Wells and honorable city council members. My name is Anchi May. I'm the Senior Program Manager of the Food and Farming Program at the IRC. IRC is also the convener of the Healthy El Cajon Coalition, and we have several of our resident participants here in the first row. And we're happy to give you an update of our 2018 accomplishments.
Great.
So the project, if you're not familiar, has been ongoing for about a year and a half. It's funded by the County of San Diego's Health and Human Services Agency through SNAP Ed dollars, so obesity prevention. And so it has these twin pillars of trying to attack the obesity epidemic of healthy living and healthy eating meeting, but through policy and kind of placemaking and improving the built environment. So the Healthy El Cajon Coalition's purpose is to work together to make El Cajon a healthier place through permanent changes in the food environment and through active living, which is walking, biking, transit, not relying on auto. The coalition, in addition to our resident participants, also includes several organizations like EMAS, Catholic Charities, San Diego Family Health Center, Cajon Valley Union School District, as well as staff from City of El Cajon, County of San Diego, and Circulate San Diego. Let's see. So we've got some images. So we've been meeting for the last year and a half each month, generating ideas for how El Cajon residents can improve their physical health and healthy food access within El Cajon's built environment. And through our conversations, the coalition has arrived at two conclusions. The first is that improving El Cajon's walkability for residents is a major way to improve physical health and beautify the city. The second is that to tackle the healthy food access, actually, low-income communities need more purchasing power. Most of our residents actually love and prepare healthy food regularly, and so the question is more about jobs and making their dollars stretch farther. And right now, the high housing costs are really denting everyone's household budgets. So it's a different way of approaching healthy food policy. So we created a survey and administered it to the community to see if the community agreed with our approach to looking at food policy in this new lens. The coalition members conducted 78 surveys. There's the survey to neighbors, coworkers, friends, and family. And for many of them, this was their first time engaging in community outreach as well. And indeed, our survey results confirmed that we were on the right track, that for the community members we talked to, improved jobs and community spaces would be a good way of approaching healthier food access. And so, in this past year, we also have been learning about how other cities have been revitalizing their downtowns through food-oriented developments. And so we worked with the San Diego State University's Master of City Planning's Fall Urban Design Studio to generate ideas about how we could also create a kind of food-oriented development here in El Cajon. And so the SDSU Urban Design Studio created designs for a food-oriented development that would have housing, a range of housing, as well as a commercial kitchen incubator that would house and start food entrepreneurs, small food entrepreneurs, and have a food court and kind of create this really exciting mixed-use space that could try to tackle a lot, but also in a way be an example of many more kinds of developments that could happen in El Cajon. The students started in September with us. Each month they came back and presented concepts, iterations. They created surveys to solicit input from the residents. And this past December we had a final open house and they shared their final designs, and it was really exciting to see all these iterations. We chose a vacant lot that was currently vacant near the transit area so that it would be more amenable to higher densities, and it was really exciting. Again, it's early stages, and we just wanted to test out some ideas and concepts and get it to paper. We're happy to share those ideas and future ideas. So next, I'd like to introduce some coalition members and let you just hear from themselves what the coalition is to them, and just to hear from your residents. First, I'm going to introduce Cajon up to the mic.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I'm Janan Bakadi. I have been here in America about 3 years and 4 months. I'm sorry my English is not very good, but I try to improve my language. I am a member of the coalition meeting. We try to work together to improve El Cajon to be nice like the other city in USA. I am happy to work, and I try to work volunteer in many alliances to make El Cajon very beautiful and nice. Thank you.
Okay, and next.
Oh, thanks. Your English is pretty good. Thanks.
Yes. Modest. Janan is very modest. And next, Amona is going to come up.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Amun Hamad. I live in El Cajon from 2000. I enjoyed this group. We want to make resident lives better with the more healthy food and green trees, flowers, and gardens, affordable housing, bus transportation. It's important for me for every handicap. We walkable street. We are working a development project that has a green park and garden, affordable housing, a food market and kitchen, children's play area, exercise area. I'm happy to live in El Cajon. I wish to make the street for handicap it's comfortable too. And thank you very much. I'm sorry about my English. It's not excellent.
That's pretty good. I understood every word, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
So anyways, it's been a terrific year, and we look forward to even a more successful 2019. The coalition will be happy to, this is just a final happy slide, to provide a lot of ideas and feedback to the city's forthcoming climate action plan, which will have room to put all our beautifying El Cajon and improving walkability ideas. And we look forward to coming back and sharing our progress and other ideas that the coalition has. Obviously, you can hear how important a beautiful El Cajon is, and I think there's a lot of synergy with what the San Diego River Park Foundation is doing, and I'm sure what the council and city wants to do. So thank you for this opportunity for us to share and for our residents. It means a lot for them to have come. I don't know if you remember in December we came and did a test run to see how a city council meeting operated. We were in the back, and here they are in the front row, and everyone is just really excited to be in a place where an open, transparent government system listens to people, and people have an opportunity to participate in it. So thank you very much.
Let's see if there's any questions. Council? Oh, Gary?
Just a comment. First of all, your English was very good. My mom came from Czechoslovakia in 1948, and you speak just as well as she did 50 years later, okay? Because I understood every word, and I couldn't always understand my mom's words. So the other thing is, I really like the idea of having a kitchen, because we've got about a community kitchen, because we've got about 70 ethnic groups here in the El Cajon Valley. And I, for one, love to try different foods. My friends were shocked that I liked pacha, but, I like it. And so one nice thing about living in El Cajon is have all these different ethnic foods. In 5 minutes drive from my house, I can have just wonderful meals that I didn't even know existed, 3 years ago. So if we could have a community kitchen and people come in to maybe learn how to start a business and cook this wonderful food, I'm all for it. I'll be there all the time.
Great. Wonderful.
Well, thank you very much for coming. And everybody, thank you for coming, and good luck this year.
Thank you.
All right, agenda changes. Staff, do you have any agenda changes?
Mr. Mayor, we have no changes.
Council? None. All right, we're going to take things a little bit out of order because we have members of our media who need to go back and meet their deadlines. So we're going to bump up to public hearing item 8 regarding dockless vehicles. I'd like to ask staff to tell us about this item if I didn't catch you too off guard.
Mr. Mayor, I believe you were referring to agenda item number 17.
Am I in the wrong place?
Correct.
Apologize. Oh, okay. Item 17 is the second reading and adoption of an ordinance amending amending the El Cajon Municipal Code addressing dockless vehicles. I'd like to ask the city clerk to read this title first. Angela, do you have speaker cards for this item?
We have no cards, sir.
Would you mind reciting the title then?
An ordinance amending Titles 1, 9, 10, and 12 and adding a new Chapter 10.26 to the El Cajon Municipal Code addressing dockless vehicles.
Okay. No speaker cards. Would somebody like to make a motion? Or discuss it? It's been a while since we talked about it. Somebody need a refresher?
Oh, move adoption.
All right. Moved and seconded. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Okay. That's it. Wasn't much to it.
Did you get all that?
I'm sorry, guys. All right. Now we're going to go back in order and go back to consent items. Consent items are routine matters enacted by one motion according to the recommendation listed below. With the concurrence of the City Council, a council member or person in attendance may request discussion of a consent item at this time. Council members, do you wish to pull any consent items? Ben?
7.
Number 7. Staff, do you wish to pull any consent items?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Angela, do you have any speaker cards for consent items?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay. Let's go ahead and bring up number 7. Mr. Colascio, you have the floor.
Thanks. I looked at this with some detail and communicated some questions with Graham, and he gave me some answers. But for those that are listening, it's regarding $758,000, basically for a fire truck purchase. And I'm speaking for myself and some of the concerns I have regarding that purchase, given all of the economic sort of indicators as to what we should expect in the economy, knowing that the money is there, knowing that this is a public safety thing. I think that without all of the information for me with respect to how important is this vehicle with respect to getting the job done, what is it impeding on currently that we can't already accomplish? How bad do we need it, basically? Because of that and because of the conservativeness of just the way I am personally, I would say that I would feel more comfortable with either having that full report of how bad do we need it, given the current fleet, given some calls that we couldn't get to because we didn't have this truck, longevity of other trucks that we have. I'm not prepared to spend $760,000 on that. I would be inclined to push it down the road and to until we get a better understanding, again, because of the conservativeness of how I allocate money right now personally. I'm just pouring that over into how I legislate, I guess. So that's my concern, putting it out there. Yeah, that's it.
Bob?
The truck we're replacing is like 11 years old, and they have a given period of time that they're useful. And also the fact that this is an updated truck. It's also hooked onto a bid that City of Los Angeles got in 2016, and we were able to get it for the same price on their bid. I'm going to support this because of the fact that I think El Cajon's done their homework. They know where the monies need to be spent. That's why we have a staff, and I'm going to support it.
Just to follow up on Bob's, I looked at everything that you said, and while it is 10 or 12 years old, I also know that they undergo rigorous like diagnostics and checks. It's not like your 12-year-old car at home. So they last much, much longer. And I know about LA's bid, but I just at this point, given all the economic indicators, I would not feel comfortable personally spending that money without seeing that it was needed. Thanks.
Mr. Mayor, with your permission, I'd like to ask either the fire chief or someone from the staff to come up and explain this to him, because I trust our experts.
I'll leave it to you, Mr. City Manager. Who do you?
I'll have Chief Sweeney come down to answer some questions, but just as for some background information, we currently have 7 vehicles, fire engines, in our fleet. 4 of them are what we call frontline engines, so they're the ones that are actually operating day to day at our stations. Then we have 3 that are in reserve. The 12-year-old vehicle that we're hoping to replace as a frontline will actually become a reserve engine, and that will be replacing an engine that was purchased in 1998. So it's almost approaching its 21st year. So that's really the engine that we're looking at replacing and pushing those engines off. We do go through a pretty rigorous assessment of our repair bills and where we're at in the fleet, but the chief can address more of the specifics about that process.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. These fire apparatus are actually custom vehicles, and they take about a year to manufacture. This is on the fleet replacement schedule. It's a collaborative effort between the fire department and fleet maintenance, and looking at the usefulness and longevity of our equipment that we have. Mr. Mitchell's exactly right. This, even though some of our frontline stuff is only 11 years old, this is actually meant to replace an aging piece of reserve equipment that has some metal fatigue and also has some high miles where the cost of maintaining it and the reliability of it is at question. These apparatus typically last around 15 years as a frontline piece, and so we try to capture the full value of them before they're worn out, before we replace them. So believe it or not, a $700,000 fire engine is going to be worth probably at the end of its life maybe about $30,000. So if we capture that and move it into a reserve status, we can get every penny out of those pieces of equipment that we can. So that's kind of what the intent of it is, to do that. We've already had a cost increase due to the tariffs and the cost increase of materials with this. Originally, we thought it was going to cost around $700,000. The council agreed to allocate extra funding during one of the last council meetings, and this tied on with a bid for LA. If we act on it by the end of the month, will save us 3%, which is somewhere around another $21,000 if we don't act on it now. Again, there's no place to just go get a fire engine like a car dealer lot. It's a custom piece of equipment that's going to take about a year to build. So by the time we get that, we'll have additional wear and tear on all the apparatus. And typically what we do to make sure that these last as long as we can, not only do we have a incredible shop that works on our equipment, but we try to move the pieces of equipment around. So we move them to a slower station to kind of mitigate the mileage and increase the usefulness of the engines.
I guess without, so it's like standard protocol, I guess, is what I'm hearing.
There's a replacement schedule for the apparatus, yes.
So yeah, and those are the things that I never like hearing, because it's just like in the real world and given everything else, I always, I know it's standard protocol. I know I got a buddy of mine who owns 7-Elevens, and for them, they have to replace their AC unit at year 10. But most people have AC units at their house that are like 20 years old and running fine. So I guess if I hear you correctly, and jump in if I'm wrong, it's standard protocol, and we're getting such a great deal, 3% discounted, right? And then we're going to be moving this truck into a frontline truck. But to me, I would be more concerned with like, have the trucks ever broken down? Has there been a call to where we couldn't get to it because we didn't have this one truck? I mean, these are the things that would trump routine measures that people take. And again, I'm treating it like as if it was me personally.
Sure.
I never want to sacrifice public safety. So if I heard something like, there was this call or this fire we couldn't get to because we didn't have this truck, sign me up. Let's spend this $750,000. But if it isn't that, if it's strictly based on routine or like business as usual, how government does it, I don't know. I don't like that really.
I understand. We're conservative as well. When we come up with these replacement schedules, they're actually borne by fleet, and fleet tracks the cost of maintenance and the wear and tear. And when they start the breakover point, when it costs more to maintain a piece of equipment than you're getting out of it, because we have a good reserve fleet like we do that's healthy and that we can rely on it to switch into when a vehicle is getting serviced or when a vehicle breaks down or when we're supporting the rest of our neighbors, the state of California, with disaster responses, it allows us to have pieces of equipment to move into. So actually, most of the equipment now with the electronics on it, we're not getting that 15 to 20 years out of it. The more electronics and the more emissions and the more stuff that they start putting into the fire apparatus, the least amount of years and worth we're getting out of these equipment. So it's a guideline. We don't take it as an absolute. We work as a collaborative effort with fleet and take a look at the cost and the value of maintaining that piece of equipment.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Mr. Colosio, a little bit more information. So as this protocol of replacement is produced, that's actually reviewed every year as part of the budget process. So my office, the finance department, and fleet actually sits down and looks at actually every vehicle and says, okay, what does the schedule say? Do we need to push this up? Do we need to push this back? And things do float back and forth all the time based on needs, based on our fleet maintenance staff saying that while this vehicle's been in the shop a lot, we're spending more on it than if we were just to buy a new one. So that does fluctuate based on the reality that we're dealing with. One of the factors, and I'll give you a little bit more maybe than you wanted to know, but one of the factors of recommending that this engine go into this last budget is if you look at when El Cajon purchased this series of engines, there was about 3 engines that were all purchased around the same time. And so if we were to wait until they are all about to break down, we would actually have to replace 3 vehicles at once. So the goal was to purchase this one this year and to push the next 2 off as much as we can to kind of create a little bit more stability from a long-term perspective. So we look at these things holistically as we prepare them for budget consideration.
Thanks.
Bob?
Yes, in view of all the wildfires that we've had in the state of California, I know we probably sent some of these engines out. Which ones do we use, the reserves or the front line?
We send the frontline apparatus out first.
Yeah, and then so the reserve can take over the.
That's correct. We backfill personnel.
Small runs.
That's correct.
So I know that it looks like we're going to have more and more wildfires in the state of California. So we're going to be called on probably more often to be the backup. Now we get paid for that, don't we, when we back up?
Yes, sir. That's correct. We get reimbursed from the state of California for it.
Great. Thank you.
Chief, what could you tell us about how often you think the 3 reserve engines are used?
Well, right now we're in 2 of them. We're using 2 of them as frontline apparatus because we have equipment that's being worked on. We have a ladder truck that sustained some damage in an accident, and so one of those engines is in place of the ladder truck so we don't decrease the level of service to the public. So we're still meeting the response needs for that since it does also respond to medical aids. It can also give us our effective fire force on fires. So right now, if we had another piece of equipment go break, have some sort of a problem, then all of our reserve fleet would be being used as a frontline apparatus. Now that's fluid. It changes on a day-to-day basis of when we use it. But without having those 3 spare rigs, it really limits our ability to service and make sure that we're getting the good quality life out of the pieces of equipment.
So am I hearing you have 1 unused reserve piece or truck
Currently,
that's
we have
not
one
in use?
That's correct. Currently, we have one that's sitting in a station that if something were to happen, either we needed to bring in extra personnel to deal with an emergency, or if we had a frontline piece of equipment have a mechanical failure for some reason, then we wouldn't miss being able to backfill a station or put a piece of equipment in service.
And do you have any guess how old that unused reserve piece is?
Yeah, the 3 reserve rigs that we have, 2 of them are from 1998 and have approximately 120,000 miles on them, and then the other one that we have is from 2001 that has close to 100,000, little over 100,000 miles on it. These are not freeway miles; these are stop and go miles, in a very short period of time from one of the fire stations. So it's not like you got in a truck and drove across country a bunch of times with it.
So our last line of defense at this point is the one unused engine, which might be 21 years old?
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Chief, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, so, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I trust the expertise of our fleet maintenance. They know at what point you're wasting money by keeping a piece of equipment and it becomes so expensive it doesn't make sense to keep it. You're better off financially to buy a new one. Just when my mechanic said, okay, Gary, time to get rid of your 1997 Toyota because it's going to cost more to fix it than what it's worth. You better buy a new car. Public safety is paramount to me. That's what this city council is supposed to do, protect the public. And I don't want to gamble on people's lives. I don't want to wait till someone dies before we get a new piece of fire equipment. So I'm going to support this.
I'll support this because if our last line of defense is a 21-year-old fire engine, I don't think we're being responsible to the people of El Cajon to let that become 22 years old next year, which would be the soonest before we could get a new engine. So I think we owe the people of El Cajon better than a 22-year-old engine as our last line of defense.
Yeah, my fear is that we have the money now, and if we put it off down the road, who knows what would happen. We suddenly find ourselves in a situation where we have to buy 3 trucks and don't have the money set aside for that. Things happen. It seems to me like we're ready to go. All right, so then I'll make a motion to approve item number 7.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Please vote.
Motion carries by a 4-1 vote with Councilmember Kalasho abstaining.
Okay. As for the rest of the consent items, do we have any speaker cards on them?
We do not, sir.
All right. I'd like to make a motion then to approve the rest of the consent items.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Please vote.
With your permission, I'm going to reset the vote, please.
Mm-hmm. All right. Please vote again.
Please vote. Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Great. That brings us to public comment. At this time, any person may address a matter within the jurisdiction of the City Council, Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency that is not on the agenda. Comments relating to items on today's agenda are to be taken at the time that the item is heard. State law prohibits discussion or action on items not on the agenda. However, City Council and Housing Authority members may briefly respond to statements or questions, and an item may be placed on a future agenda. Angela, do we have any cards under public comment?
Sir, we have 5 speakers, and the first one is Dolores Landers.
Hello. Welcome. Go ahead, pull that down.
Good morning, good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and council members. I spoke on October 9th, 2008, in a public comment meeting on violations of Title 17-115, General Land Use and Performance Standards at a property in our neighborhood. On October 12th, I received an email from Vince DiMaggio, Assistant Manager, directing the Community Development Department, Code Enforcement Division, to review my information and conduct an inspection of the site. On October 10th, Code Enforcement made contact with the resident, and the resident was given a written warning with the warning to remove any non-operational vehicle and any vehicles that do not have current registration tags by October 21st. If the violation isn't abated by October 21st, the resident can be fined as much as $100 per day. A following inspection will be conducted on October 21st. When I came home on Sunday from church, 11 cars were there coming down for this meeting. I'd say it's up to 20. 11 cars. Some have tarps over them. No registrations are on the property. Apparently, Mr. Anthony Shute and his department has made an arrangement with the owner to voluntarily remove 2 cars and 2 more cars at the end of the year. He also addressed noise, not equipment noise, just noise, not working on cars at night, not where they're dumping liquid industrial waste, just voluntary cooperation and noise. This has been going on for over 2 years. I'm going to show you pictures since you had firemen here and you're talking about them buying a very expensive truck. I've lived in this house for 20 years. And about 10 years ago, we had a 5-alarm fire with this man's children playing with fireworks. This is what the Freeway 8 does to a cul-de-sac where 13 houses couldn't get off the hill. So if you want to see the fires, there it is.
Maybe you can...
and we couldn't get off the hill.
You can give the pictures to our clerk, and she'll give them to the council members.
For the record, 2 articles, I know my time is going up. For the record, 2 articles have appeared in the San Diego Union within the month. One was the San Diego City Council helping to build the Neighborhood Watch program and the upcoming public meetings regarding zoning codes. The zoning code helps promote economic activity while preserving neighborhoods. Good land use guidance is important to preserve public health. That was mentioned today. Safety and the welfare that might decline if an undesirable business pops up in the middle of a residential neighborhood. This was quoted December 27, 2018, for the residents of the city of Escondido. I don't understand why the city of El Cajon and Mr. Shute and the zoning department is allowing this property owner to voluntarily remove the cars.
Okay. Graham, can you have somebody from the proper department meet with her and see if we can resolve this? Ma'am, I'm going to have you meet with somebody from our department. Hopefully it resolves the issue. If it doesn't, please feel free to come back at the next meeting and let us know what happens.
I'll be back every meeting.
That's as is your right, and as I would expect.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Julio Molina, pardon.
Hello, sir. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. So, first off, thank you for the opportunity, Mayor and city leaders. Well, I'm here just to, in behalf of Walgreens, I'm the store manager there. I'm talking in behalf of my team members and the customers there. I guess we have a big issue, and I'm seeking for guidance and support to handle the homeless population that we have around the store. This challenge we have is a daily threat for our team members and our customers. They're being harassed. They do drugs, prostitution, you name it. And actually, every day we have homeless living in our premises day and night. So it's just here to find a solution to see how can you support us.
All right. Questions? Comments, gentlemen? Sir, this is an ongoing problem for us and so many business owners, and we're glad you came and talked to about it. We're actually going to be having a town hall meeting. What's the date of the town hall meeting?
On January 30th at 6 p.m.
And you're welcome to come and talk about your issues at that night. But in the meantime, let me see if I can connect you with my staff so that you can meet with somebody from the police department and talk about all the things that we can do to help you. It's probably going to end up being a collaboration. We're finding that there's the homeless problem in this city and every city in California is so much that we're really needing cooperation with not only what the city can do to help you, but private security that businesses are all around the country are being forced to get because of the change in the climate and the homeless. So let's work together, And you're welcome to come to the town hall meeting. You're welcome to come back to any council meetings if you'd like to meet with myself. Personally, I'll meet with you and talk to you about it. It's a big issue for us, but I wish I could tell you there was an easy answer. It's not gonna. It's going to be a hard fight. So,
Yep.
Graham, would you send somebody to meet with him? Thank you, sir. And is it Bob?
Graham or somebody on the staff, is there any regulation that he can't put, say, cameras around the store that he can sight in on these people, and then maybe microphones to where they could say, we've called the police, please vacate our space and move off of our lot?
One of the things that we offer our police department is we meet with business owners or business managers and talk about strategies, both technology and just some simple things, landscaping, how the flow of traffic works, getting security guards, how those tools can work to help us. But those may be some of the strategies we'll apply as part of this process. But we'll reach out and we'll look for some strategies that he can apply and that we can be aware of as well.
I would think cameras and maybe a microphone that would, or a speaker out there that you could say, please remove yourself from the property. The police have been called and they're on their way, and we'd just like you to voluntarily leave without having to call the police or whatever. And maybe they'd move on, and maybe they wouldn't. But I don't know what can the police do if they're trespassing on the property. Could Morgan address that?
Well, I think the police, if they have a trespass letter on file, can go in and enforce that by asking them to leave, and if not, they can cite them for trespass. Until we have that authority, though, it's up to the property owner to handle the trespass civilly or by way of a citizen's arrest, perhaps.
Julio, we probably need that letter.
We have it. I think I already submitted it again.
Let's
already on file.
Let's have you meet with the police and see what we can come up with, and let's work together. And like I said, if you would like to call the office and make an appointment, I'd be glad to meet with you. If you'd want to meet with one of the other council members, I'm sure they'd be happy to meet with you as well. This is probably our top priority, the thing we talk about and think about most. Steve?
All right, thank you. Oh.
One other question. Do the homeless come into your store and buy alcohol? I guess you don't sell it, do you? We didn't allow that.
I don't sell alcohol in my store, but they do come in just
I remember you asked and we said no. So,
yeah.
One of the best things you're doing is to keeping your dumpster doors locked. I was out there Saturday morning, and that helps. It's very, very important that you keep that locked. That is a key to much of the debris that you're seeing around town.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jim Sirigliano.
Hello, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, staff, just a quick update on our rent mediation. Nothing much has changed, okay? There's 8 lucky petitioners who were lucky enough to file at the right time that are being addressed. And we still don't know all the details yet. And it's supposed to culminate by January 31st. And Mr. Mitchell, this is applicable to you also, the things that we spoke about and some of the information that I gave you. I did a little research and found out that City Attorney Lynn McDougal, was the one who authored this. I'm in the process of trying to find out who else participated in the development of this. I've contacted the city clerk's office and perhaps even Mr. Foley. I may be in touch with you again about this matter. And I do want to follow up on it. It's very important. And then just real quickly, moving on, I was happy to see a change in the Board of Supervisors. We have 2 new members. And I'd like to quote something from Nathan Fletcher that was in last Friday's Union Tribune. He said, the goal of public office is to move policy that improves people's lives. No one's life is improved by a speech. No one's life is improved by a campaign. People's lives are improved by bold, substantive policy changes. And I think that applies to all of us here in our city also. Like I said at the end of last year, I would hope that there's a change in a lot of procedures that actually happen in the city council. And I addressed it, and my only disappointment was that no one ever really spoke up at that last meeting. And I know, like I said, I know we addressed this here. And even the police department, all they had to do was come up and kindly ask this gentleman to leave the premises. And that's about all I have to say. And Happy New Year, and I hope that look forward to working with everyone on the council, staff. Mr. Goebel, thank you also for. I noticed that nothing is on the agenda about the Southwest Key. I know you're working on that, and I'm looking forward to hearing about it and the follow up on it. And I think that's about all I have to say today, unless anyone has questions for me.
Thank you.
And thank you very much.
Brenda Hammond.
Hi, Brenda. Welcome.
Hi, Graham. I mean, Mr. Mitchell. I just wanted to say Happy New Year, and I lost my Lemon Grove pin, and I hope somebody found it that will enjoy it. But I do have my El Cajon one on, so whenever I'm in El Cajon, I wear it. Thank you, Monica. So I just want to say Happy New Year, and I hope that it's a good year for everybody.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Our last speaker is Bonnie Price.
Ms. Price, welcome.
Hello. I commend you all for bringing in someone from the census and pointing out in numbers what it means to El Cajon not to have a complete count. You're probably aware that there is a court case on whether the citizenship question will be included on the census. That is a question that will deter collaboration with a complete count. It'll cost you money if people do not participate. And so I hope that you will let those know who make federal policy that they should really withdraw their assertion that they're going to add that citizenship question, because it will cost money for El Cajon, and that means the money has to be made up by local taxes. So the court case, of course, is in process, but still, usually lawyers say, well, it's in legal limbo, we can't talk about it. But those who bring the case, who have the policy in place, they can be talked to and ask them to withdraw the question voluntarily, so it's no longer a legal issue. Now, there are two items from last meeting. I was wondering if you followed up on the question of whether East County Transitional Living Center people will actually get paid for working for the city. Mr. Mayor, did you do that?
No, I'm sorry. I don't know the answer to that question.
Mr. Mayor, we don't have an agreement with the ECTLC, so the question's moot at this point.
Oh, I thought you had passed an agreement with them.
Well, I'm not sure what agreement you're talking about.
East County Transitional Living Center to work with the city to do town maintenance.
Mr. Mayor, I believe she's referring to the council did authorize staff to look into working with them to come to a potential agreement. But we have no agreement that we've presented to the council for consideration.
Okay, faulty memory. But whenever you do it, please consider requiring that they pay the people some of the money that goes to the East County Transitional Living Center. The state of California even pays people who are imprisoned who go on fire duty just a small sum so that they can feel like they're making a contribution when they're doing this work.
Wouldn't this be an employment commission issue?
An employment issue? Well, when you're having a contract labor, you put in the contract what your specifications are.
I guess what I'm saying is that the city of El Cajon doesn't have any jurisdiction in what people are paid or not paid. So that would be, I imagine there's I think it's the Department of Labor. Is that not? Yeah.
So you wouldn't put in the contract a specification that those who are in the homeless shelter get actual some of the money that East County Transitional Living Center gets?
Well, we don't have a contract. We don't have an agreement. So I guess we're talking about two different things. What I'm saying is if you think that people are being mistreated and not being paid their fair share, then there's another agency that you can go to. As far as a future agreement, I'd have to see the agreement and see what was in it and what was not in it. Generally, we wouldn't specify what anybody's paid. We would contract out with a entity, and they would pay their people what they pay their people.
Okay. Well, I hear you loud and clear. You're not really going to put a specification in a contract if you have a contract.
Well, it's a hypothetical. If the contract came to us and that were appropriate, I suppose we'd be happy to look at that. But it's just, in general, I've been doing this since 2004. I've never seen any contract where we question what people were being paid or how they were being paid. So perhaps it would be appropriate in the future. I don't know. If we ever get a contract with them, then I guess you can come to the meeting and ask for that.
Okay. Well, when some of us did an investigation of the situation several years ago, we learned that some of these homeless people were required to sign volunteer work contracts, and they had to work 12 hours, and they got not a single dime, even though the East County Transitional Living Center got the money.
I couldn't speak to that. I'm sorry.
Well, we had people who had been there telling us that they were abused by those who were supposed to be helping them salvage their lives. And
you're not a fan of the East County Transitional Living Center, I take it.
Well, I was there. I visited. I think they have a good program.
I've seen amazing things happen out of that. I mean, people that have lost their lives have regretted where other programs, commercial programs that charge them tremendous amount, $50,000, $60,000 a month, don't have nearly the success rate. So it's, for me, I have trouble believing that they're hurting these folks. But if you feel like they are, then perhaps you should call community care licensing or the county of San Diego, who has jurisdiction over these kind of things, and report it. But it would break my heart because it's probably the most prolific program that we have in this county, or maybe any other county I've heard of.
Well, I'm not condemning the agency. I'm just saying those people who are there are supposed to be learning how to live as a functioning person in our society.
And like I said, as a doctor of mental health, I've never seen a program that has been as effective as they are in doing just that.
Well,
but if you think people are being abused, I definitely think you should contact the county and go through the process.
Okay, I hear you. Thank you. And the other thing that was left from last meeting was the Southwest Key operations. You directed staff to look into it.
That's on my list. I'll be asking about that when my turn comes up.
Okay, thank you.
Gary?
Just a comment. I usually don't comment on public comment because it's just for the public to tell us what they think. But I have two people that lived at my house that are graduates of East County Transitional Living Center, and they've been there 3 years now, and they're big fans of it and saved their life. They literally took them out of the gutter with their nose bleeding from too much cocaine and other bad things. And they're very productive members of society now, and they're like members of my family. So I'm very impressed with what they do over there.
I think that they have an agreement when they enter the program that it's a work learning experience, and they're trying to learn to do things working again, which they haven't done for a period of time when they were homeless, and it's a way of reintroducing them to what life's all about. And they don't pay any room and board. I think that's how they their work pays for their room and board, and they've been very productive. I've had a number of them work for me and my around the house and at the business that I have, and they've been very good workers and very reliable, and it's been a very satisfactory experience. And the people are wonderful. They like the program. They're very much enthused with it. I think if they want, they can leave the program at any time they want and get back out on the street or wherever they go, but that's their free will. And nobody's put a gun to their head and said that they have to do the things that they're asked to do. But I think that it's a very successful program, as Gary has already said. And they're wonderful people that are there and are good to contact them when you need work done in the yard or building or anything else, and they're very good workers. So anyway, I'm totally convinced that it's a great program for the city, and for the recidivism rate of coming out of the program and then going back into homelessness is about probably a quarter of what it is as far as the state program is concerned, or any other private organization has. They only have about 20% of the people that graduate that actually fall back into that same situation. 80% of them become taxpayers, not tax users, and it's a very good program.
Regarding the Southwest Key item, that was brought up December 11th. City staff has reached out to Southwest Key. We have to have permission from the federal government before we're allowed on the property. So probably because of the Christmas holiday, or I should say the December holiday, and with the federal government shutdown, there's a delay in hearing back from the federal government for that approval. So our access time may be extended. So that's the reason why we're still waiting to hear from. That's the next step.
That's exactly right. Okay.
No more cards, sir.
Okay. That brings us to public hearings. Item number 8 is regarding a notice to vacate and an abatement at 743 El Cajon Boulevard. And staff, would you tell us about that? Hello, sir.
Hello, Mayor Wells, City Council. Sorry, I've got a little bit of head cold going on.
That's okay. You're doing fine.
Well, you've seen my agenda report. This facility did install, it was a marijuana dispensary. It did install these electronic magnetic locks. They're very problematic because you have to actually buzz somebody out to leave the building. In this particular case, it was even on a remote. So if somebody misplaced that remote, you couldn't really buzz anybody out if there was a fire in the building, or if somebody came in and tried to rob the place. That kind of thing. It could be a very big problem. So we requested that SDG&E remove the meter for the property. This is kind of standard procedure for us because we don't get a lot of cooperation from the business itself. So they did remove the meter from the building. Unfortunately, they installed a generator inside the building that was actually venting on the inside of the building. And it was almost comical in a sense because I actually warned them, do not do this, it's dangerous. And but they did it anyway. They installed this generator, and it actually made some people sick, made 3 people sick. 1 was transported to the hospital. So at that point, the police department confiscated the generator. We boarded the structure. They opened back up. We boarded them again. It has since been vacated by the tenant and returned back to the property owner, who is here today. And so we are standing before council requesting that we be reimbursed the cost of boarding, the cost of our response, administrative costs, etc.
Council, any questions? See if there's any questions for you, sir.
Don't we fine these businesses a certain amount per day, $2,500 a day, and has that been done?
Mr. McClellan, this does not include the administrative fines that have been issued. This is just for the cost that staff incurred, the direct cost staff incurred to abate the property, to board it up, to make it safe. So we will be collecting that other fee through a different process, but for right now we wanted to get the actual dollar amount that we spent on abating the property as a lien if it can't be paid.
Yeah. I think when we find one of these dispensaries, we need to notify the property owner that they will be fined $2,500 a day, that it's open and not shut down because of the fact that they need to know what their liability is going to be. That would be a good practice, maybe, to notify them immediately that they're under the gun for $2,500 a day until their tenant leaves.
Actually, when we cite, we actually cite the business operator as well as the property owner. So there's actually 2 citations that go out when we find one of these illegally operated dispensaries.
So the property owner knows right away that
that's absolutely correct.
On the hook for $2,500 a day.
That's correct.
Great. Okay.
All right. Before we go to public speakers, any more questions from council? All right. Angela, any public speakers on this issue?
We have one speaker, James McCormick.
All right. I'd like to open the public hearing and invite James up. Mr. McCormick, how are you doing?
Mayor Wells, I'm fine, but not fine, as you can imagine, looking at a $6,000 bill. And council members, thank you for letting me speak. And let me say right up front, I am not a marijuana user, never have been, never will be. It was problematical for me as a squad leader in Vietnam, trying to figure out who was going to be safe and who wasn't. I do not appreciate this stuff. But I also don't appreciate receiving 4 administrative citations in 4 days. Before I ever received the first citation, and in the finding process, I've been issued 3 more. It's a little unreasonable. As to this $6,000, the same thing applies. By the time I received notice that I was ordered to secure the premises and board it up, it was being done. When I arrived, city staff was there boarding it up. And in a way, I thank them because I couldn't get rid of these people. The law enforcement and the fire department did the trick. They headed for the woods, and frankly, I haven't seen them since. And they don't answer their phone. But to be clear, I did not rent this building to a marijuana dispensary. I sold this building to an individual who told me he was going to try and open a liquor store, which I found ludicrous in the middle of the block with no parking. But it had been vacant for 3 years. And after 3 years, I was receptive to the offer to purchase, even though I had my misgivings, which proved to be true. Bottom line is, I believe that $6,000 for 5 pieces of plywood is a little onerous. And I would ask you to reconsider that.
I have some questions. You mentioned that you sold the property, you didn't rent the property. Why are you here then? If the property had moved out of your name and was transferred into the name of another person, why are we seeing you?
Because we did not effect a transfer. We were still dealing with an attorney who was preparing a sale agreement.
Okay.
That particular attorney no longer works for me. After 3 weeks, she still hadn't produced it. I reached out to another attorney, and by then the fuel was in the fire. Okay. And I didn't want to sell it to them. I was hoping that we could get rid of them.
And before I go on, I forgot to mention, thank you for your service in Vietnam.
Oh, thank you.
So this is an important question for me. Did you know that this was going to become a marijuana dispensary?
I guessed that it was going to be after the second meeting, but by then we had entered into an agreement. I should have just blown out of the agreement and taken my lumps on that side of the ledger. I was told it was going to be a liquor store.
Well, thank you for being so honest with me. I appreciate that. Let me see if there are other questions from the council. Yes, sir.
So escrow did not close. You just allowed them to take early possession.
Yes, I took a first and last month. I agreed to rent to own until we could get through the escrow process.
So you received some kind of monies from this buyer?
Yes.
Okay. And first and last is what you're saying is the limit of what you collected from them, or did you collect a monthly rent as well during a holdover?
That is the monthly rent. First and last is typical in a rental scenario.
And how many months were they there?
They actually moved in October 15th.
Okay. So
I believe the lockout occurred the 29th of November.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
City staff would be able to affirm that, I think. 29th of October, Dan? 27th?
Ben?
Excuse me.
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused too. So, you took first and last month's rent. That's it?
That's it. The idea was to get the balance at the close as we entered into the escrow, to get the balance of the first down payment.
So they were going to...
So I was renting to them, but that was not my intent. I do not enjoy selling properties that I've had for 34 years, but frankly, this property, that whole end of El Cajon Boulevard, has become such a problem. I've spent $9,000 there this year, painting buildings, fixing fences, ejecting the homeless.
Yeah, so you tried to sell it, the sale didn't go through, then they went to rent to own. You collected 2 months' worth of payments, and that's it.
They paid me once on October 15th.
For 2 months, they've never paid you, and then you took, they forfeited their escrow deposit, right, too?
They forfeited everything. They don't even answer their phone now.
I'm saying that.
Well, I'm sorry, there was no escrow ever opened. We never got that point.
Okay.
My attorney, Susan Lamson, let me down big time on that.
Sounds like a messy transaction. Okay, well, I get it.
Boulevard.
Well, you've since, now you're the owner again.
Still.
So it never went to escrow. It went to a purchase agreement that your attorney drafted up. That deal fell through. Then you got a whiff that they were selling marijuana, and then you're here now.
It's much more than a whiff, Mr. Kalasho. I still had my office right next door. The odor is horrible.
Okay, so you really knew.
I knew what they were up to after they'd been there about a week. They installed a bunch of crazy doors and windows and walls, all of which I'm going to have to remove now once I get a building permit to remove them.
I know it's hard to keep up with city ordinances and whatnot, but did you know that it was illegal to have that here within the city?
Yes.
Thanks.
A follow-up question. The public will ask, why should you keep 2 months' worth of rent, and yet the people of El Cajon should incur the cost of enforcement? What would your response be?
Mr. Goebel, I'm not asking you to incur the entire $6,000. I am saying that I believe $6,000 for the work that was performed is outrageous, frankly. But then I haven't seen the invoice. I don't know exactly what was done to incur that $66,1695.
Gary?
How much money did they give you altogether in that payment?
Altogether, $20,000.
$20,000 for 2 months of rent?
Yep.
Didn't you think that was a little excessive?
Considering what they wanted to do, to go into my building and start making changes without going to escrow? No, I didn't think so at all. I was looking to gather some income off this property. It's been vacant for 3 years.
My understanding is the marijuana dispensary is taking about $10,000 a day and typically pay enormous amounts of rent because that part of the cost of doing business. But didn't that make you a little suspicious?
Yes and no. I was suspicious, but I was anxious to make a sale. We did not make a deal at $3,000 a month. They offered to go to $20,000, knowing that we were going to be at least 60 days getting the attorneys to do this agreement because we were not using a realtor.
Thank you.
So I do have $20,000. I can pay this. I'd rather not.
Would that $20,000 have come off the total cost of the house?
What's a commercial property, Mr. Mayor?
I'm sorry. So I mean, would it have come when you were taking the $20,000? You say, well, this $20,000 is going to come off the total cost of the property when I sell it.
Oh, yes. Excuse me. Yes, it would. That would go toward the down payment.
Okay, Steve.
Following up, the $6,600, $600 was for administrative costs, $880 was community development staff time, $3,200 was for public works staff time and boarding material costs. The fire department is $1,900. The fire department's in there because there was a very dangerous incident there on November 29th in which they were running a generator inside, and I think the police department saved the lives of 2 people that day. So the fire department response for that is not a normal cost of service to the community. So that's your $6,600, $1,800 for the fire department, $3,200 for the public works, $800 and $600 for the community development overhead cost. Now I'm going to come back to my question. If you receive $20,000 in rent, can you see how the public would say, why should he keep $20,000 and we, the people of El Cajon, have to absorb $6,600?
Mr. Goebel, you have to also understand I still have another $24,000 fine pending. So I'm struggling to save something somewhere. The $24,000, I am told, is not something that can be appealed. The appeal period has apparently gone by. So I'm on the hook for an additional $24,000 of staff time, penalties, and so forth that Mr. McClellan alluded to. But again, I received my first notice in the mail. There are 3 more successfully coming in, at which point we're already in fine. This is on the administrative side. Even if I could get them out, the minimum time it would take to get them out, I believe the city attorney can attest to this, by the time you do an unlawful detainer and go through the waiting periods, you're 30 days. I already owe $24,000. As I said earlier, the city did me a favor by getting rid of these people because at this point they're belligerent and not nice. Very, very much not nice.
I understand you're facing probably remodel costs. You're facing some civil penalties. I just come back to the public would ask me, why are you waiving $6,600 or a portion thereof and let him keep $20,000? I understand you have additional costs. I'm sympathetic. I think really this comes down to an error in judgment on giving them the property before you closed escrow. And now you have legal liability for things as a result. I think your intent was not bad, but nonetheless there was a harm to the people of El Cajon that incurred costs. And we're the watchdogs of the city's resources. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from.
I hear you, and I actually agree with you, Mr. Goebel. You're absolutely correct. But I will also throw in that I have 2 additional lawsuits as a result of this occupancy. I have one for ADA noncompliance because they didn't install a ramp.
Bob.
That's $20,000 more, it looks like.
Morgan, got a question. Does a property owner, where somebody puts an illegal business in their property, do they have a right to get them out of there right away? Is there a process for doing that?
Well, there's an implied covenant that you do not commit illegal acts when you're leasing a piece of property, and that does give the property owner the chance to declare a breach of the contract, in my opinion, and seek a removal of the tenant, or at least seek them to give them notice and require them to cease and desist that activity. And if they don't within the 3-day notice, to quit that type of illegal activity. I think it's still 3-day notice for a commercial property. They have the right to start the unlawful detainer process.
And how long does that take?
Well, that could take quite some time when you have a very sophisticated tenant, because they can drag it out as for many weeks to come.
So their best bet is to call the city and tell them to have the electric meter removed. And
let me make it clear: we do not go out directing SDG&E to remove meters without an appropriate background that reflects that there is an immediate life and safety issue going on. It was because, as Mr. Paval indicated, because of an illegal installation of magnetic locks for doors, which violates the building code, and we have taken this position on these types of improvements that is illegal, that does justify the removal of the meter. SDG&E will remove them, and then we proceed from there.
And the gentleman stated that he knew that it was a marijuana thing because of the smell. So if he'd acted right away and contacted the city and said there's an illegal marijuana there, and they've done some modifications to the building, would you help me in sending the staff out to help me get them out of there?
Well, there's a lot of process that needs to be completed before we can do that. The reason we had access to this one so quickly was because of the inspection that occurred. They were allowed; our inspectors were allowed to go entry to the building, and they saw the mag locks. That's the first thing we look for sometimes in these things, and that led to the building department to seek the termination of the meter, to have the meter pulled by SDG&E. And when that happened, they installed generators, and there was a call for an emergency response. I think our PD was there because of if I recall, there was a call that came in over 911, and they either responded to that or responded for some other reason. They called the fire department, or they were called as well. They showed up and took the two individuals who were sick and treated them. One, as Mr. McCormick said, or Mr. Paval said rather, was transported to the hospital and was in serious condition for a while. But we don't get access to that without permission of the tenant or the property owner. If there is no tenant, then the property owner can always give us access. But otherwise, we'd have to get an inspection warrant from the court, just like a police department would need a search warrant for searching for illegal activities.
But as the gentleman stated, he was the property owner, and he could have called the city and asked them to go in and check it out, since he knew it was an illegal activity.
Well, I think it's a little more difficult than that. Even as the property owner, I don't know what his lease term says. If his lease had allowed him immediate access, he could have had access himself. I don't know. But from our perspective, we need to have the people who are in possession of the property. In this case, it would have been the tenant to allow us access to inspect the property. And in fact, that was allowed when they walked in, and our building officials or enforcement officers, code enforcement officers from the planning division, went in and inspected and saw that it was an illegal activity.
Thank you.
Sir, what's the square footage of the building, and how much was the sale price?
Well,
proposed sale price.
We were attempting to sell for $700,000. The building is right at 4,000 feet. It has a parking lot in the rear. The lot size, I don't have memorized. I believe the lot is 12,000 or 13,000. It has the alley access on the rear. It should have parking on the front, but there's never any parking in the front, especially since the 2-hour parking signs came down. Nothing ever moves out front.
Have you attended this? Has it been listed by you before, that building?
No.
So they just came to you?
They approached us, yes. Actually, we've been approached twice. One was by the next-door neighbor, Joe's Tires, and by these gentlemen.
What was the offer from Joe's Tires?
I believe they wanted to give us $600. We wanted $750. We've had friction with them in the past. I wasn't really wanting to sell to them. So we walked away from that deal.
Okay. Well, in my opinion, you came out pretty well, because if that guy would have died on your property, that would have caused all sorts of problems for you in lawsuits.
Mr. Kendrick, it's worse than that. What they did to put in that generator and the jury rigging they did with an extension cord was a recipe for a fire. When I saw it, I was dumbfounded. I have never seen anything dumber in my life.
Right. Thank you.
One last question. I want to move this along. Do you have other properties that you own in El Cajon?
Yes, I have 799 El Cajon Boulevard, the corner of Wilson and El Cajon Boulevard. It's currently occupied by G.I. Joe's.
I don't need to, just how many properties do you own in town?
Those two. And G.I. Joe's has given me notice he's leaving in March. He can't deal with the homeless anymore.
Have you ever had other problems with marijuana dispensaries?
No, I've never been involved with that kind of thing here.
I'm going to have you go ahead and sit them and see if there's any other people who want to speak, and then we're going to talk about it in the council. We may call you back up if there's more questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other speakers?
No, sir. No more cards.
All right, I make a motion that to close the public hearing. Moved and seconded, please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right, it comes back to council. I'm going to go ahead and start, if you don't mind. It may surprise you, it kind of surprises me, that I'm going to advocate for wiping out the fine. I think that he is going to pay a lot for this. I think he's a good citizen. I think he was duped. I don't think he's the person that intended to cause this problem. And we're going to get money in other ways to cover our costs. I don't think I agree with him. I don't think the costs are representative of what they really would cost. So it's and I want to say that with the caveat that when he walked up, my intention was, I'm so frustrated with these marijuana dispensaries that I want to hit them with everything we got. Everybody's involved, but like it is so often in real life, people come up and there's extenuating circumstances, and you get to know people and you realize that it's not always as cut and dry as it might appear. So that's my recommendation. I'm glad to sit back and listen to what you gentlemen have to say. Let's just go down the line. Gary?
Well, I feel about the dispensaries just as you do, Mr. Mayor. They're just a bane on this community. We have all sorts of trouble with them. Someone, in this case, they cared so little for their employees, they had one that almost died. And I have a question, with your permission, to Morgan. Now that he's got the $2,500 a day fine for being the owner of a property that had an illegal activity, right?
Yes, that's excuse me, that's correct. But that's not what's before you today.
Well, but that's negotiable at some later point, right?
Yes, that is. That isn't before you. What is here is cost recovery. This is actual costs, out-of-pocket costs of the city to do this work.
Well, I think he took in $20,000 of income that he probably wouldn't have had otherwise in rent, which is astronomical for that area. That should have been, sometimes it's too good to be true. It's not true. It's something bad going on. And I do want to send a message to the other landlords in the community that want to look the other way while we have these marijuana dispensaries open up. I think the dispensaries profit from the suffering of others, and it's kind of sickens me what they do to their employees. How they put them in such incredible danger. So I don't think the taxpayers should pay for the expenses that they've created for the city. And I can't know a good conscience as a taxpayer to pay that $6,600. So on the other fines, which will come later, that may be a different story. So I think we need to collect that $6,600.
I agree, and we'll address the fines later at a different date. I wouldn't be in favor of reducing all of them, but I would possibly compromise at some point.
I would consider a payment plan, like 6-month payment plan on that. I wouldn't waive it, but to help you alleviate, I know you're going through a few other lawsuits. The ADA one is a complete loss. That one sucks. Been through those, but I would do a payment plan, some 6 months or something. Then you wouldn't feel it as much. But yeah.
I agree with Gary. We are the watchdog of the people's resources, which is time. And in this case, this item is about cost recovery to enforce something. And I agree, we owe the taxpayers to recover the cost of enforcing illegal activity. The time for consideration, I think, comes more on a later item, which would be the civil penalties item. The civil penalties really more are a punitive type of they could be a punitive type arrangement. And so I don't find that you had any malice, intent, trying to scam the people of El Cajon. So in that sense, the punitive place is where I think we should make our adjustments. But in this case, for the item before us, cost recovery to enforce an illegal activity, I can't ask the people of to say to the people of El Cajon, we're going to absorb this one, he's going to keep all of his rent. So I would agree that we should recover the full $6,600 staff has said cost and time, and a later time for adjusting any punitive amounts.
Cool. Anyway, want to discuss a compromise?
600 now.
You want this?
Yes.
All right. Well, that sounds like council has made up their minds. Does someone have to make a motion?
Move to have staff collect the $66,1695 within 90 days.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Please vote.
Motion carries by a 3-2 vote with Mayor Wells and Councilmember Kalasha voting no.
Just to clean up a little bit, I think it was Ben talked about a payment plan. Is that something that we should deal with here at this level, or will you deal with that at the staff level?
Well, the motion was to pay within 90 days, so it was approving the staff recommendation to be paid in 90 days.
My mistake. All right. Thank you.
Going to support it now? You guys support
I
it with
voted
90?
no, but that's okay.
Okay.
That's what makes a great democracy.
Yes, it does.
All right. Item 9 is for the City of El Cajon Complete Streets Policy. I'll ask staff to tell us about this item.
Mayor, City Council, it's my pleasure to bring this item before you this afternoon. I'm going to keep this brief and short, but basically what you have before you is a complete streets policy. This is putting into practice something that we've already been doing. We go out there and try to build and construct and design and plan the best streets possible. And what we try to do is look for the best way to have better mobility for all users, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and to reduce maintenance costs. And so what is a green street or a complete street, right? What is a complete street and what does it entail? I'm going to give you a photo here. This is our downtown, and Main Street is a complete street. It provides mobility for all different types of users: vehicles, bicycles, pedestrians, those who have disabilities. It really takes a holistic view at everything. And the reason why we're bringing this type of policy, because you may ask, well, why are we putting down a policy when we're already doing this in practice in many, many instances? It's because it comes down to us being eligible for grant funds. And so by us having this policy adopted, it allows us to be eligible to receive millions of dollars. In fact, last year we received about $5 million in grant funds contingent upon us adopting this policy. So those smart growth grant funds, there is a little contingency on that. And so that's why we brought this today. Here's an example of an incomplete street, right? There's not really a place for that student to be running across the street there. It can be areas where there's not enough on-street parking for vehicles. So a complete street, another example of an incomplete street, this is taking that street and making it a more complete street. You see in this cross-section, this happens to be Washington Avenue, we have travel ways for vehicles, for bicyclists and for pedestrians on the sidewalk, and for vehicles to park, which is still important. So accommodating everybody. Here is an example of what we want to turn. This is the grant funds that are on the chopping block here, essentially. But with this passage, we would be eligible for these funds, turning this on El Cajon Boulevard into this. Still allowing for vehicles to drive down it, but also adding the placemaking, the space for pedestrians and bicyclists, and adding the infrastructure that, frankly, we don't have out there now. This is a great way to bring in additional funds at no additional cost to the residents of El Cajon. Us being eligible for these grant funds is amazing because it gives us an opportunity to build these things at no cost. Or sometimes there is a match for some of these grant funds, so at little cost, a very small percentage. So with that in mind, I would propose that you consider the recommendation before you today with this complete streets policy adoption, and we move forward from there.
Thanks. Excellent, Dirk. Thank you very much. Are there any speaker cards for this item?
No, sir, no cards.
All right, then it just brings it back to council. Do we have any discussion about this? Seems like a no-brainer. It's like a good thing to do, and Dirk made it fun and interesting. So, yes,
yeah, I think it's a great idea. I'm really impressed with the rendering of El Cajon Boulevard, what it could be. It's walkable. They get the bike lanes. It makes it a lot easier for people in a wheelchair to move around. So I think it's great. So I'm all for it.
Bob?
I think that people in cars probably are probably 90% of the traffic. And I hate to see us minimizing the opportunity for people to drive and cause more traffic flow problems than what we already have. And so I would encourage staff to not cause more traffic problems by minimizing the traffic flow that we already have by putting in bicycle lanes where maybe cars used to be before, and the amount of traffic would be limited because of the fact that they wouldn't have the lanes that they had before. So I'm just afraid of this. So I would I'm not sure that this is going to work in a positive way for our citizens if we minimize too many of the traffic lanes. And what is your how do you address that?
Mr. McClellan, thank you for the question. We do take all modes of transportation in consideration, and in many instances, especially like I showed you in that image, there's excessively wide lanes. Using more narrow lanes, creating safer intersections doesn't necessarily, and in most cases, does not harm the flow of traffic. We're maximizing the use of the real estate that we have already to beautify it and to add additional amenities for our residents. So what we're trying to do is maximize what we have. As someone who has to maintain all the asphalt as well, sometimes narrowing those lanes down a little bit, that's going to save the city a lot of money in the long term. If I remove just a foot down the side of one length of street, that's 1 foot times thousands of feet of asphalt that we don't have to maintain in perpetuity, which does have to be maintained over and over again. That black asphalt also sucks in heat making it hotter in our environment. So I know I'm kind of getting into some of these philosophical things, but the end result and our goal is to continue to provide mobility for the vehicles while also adding additional amenities for our residents.
But I would say that probably 90% of the mobility is through the use of the automobile still as we speak today. And to narrow the lanes down too much or to take out lanes, like I remember when we did Washington when I was on the council a few years back, and we made it 4 lanes. And making it 3 lanes now because of the fact that bicycle lanes and other things are going to be put in there. I've been on Washington and I backed up where both lanes are full of cars, 8-10 cars in a row, and it just doesn't make sense to narrow streets like Washington to 3 lanes instead of 4 lanes, and then you'll have people waiting for 2 or 3 lights before they can move through an intersection, light changes that is, and I think that we'd have a lot more traffic problems if we cut down too many of these streets from 4 lanes to 3 lanes and put in too many bicycle lanes because of the fact that I think 90% of the mobility is still in automobiles. When that changes, that would be a good time to do that, but in today's world, I think people are not getting out of their cars. It's just like the mass transit. About 3% of the people ride mass transit. Well, they get a third of the money for the road taxes. I think that's a little off kilter, and I think that's way out of bounds. And we should watch what we do in our city about putting in too many things that limit passenger cars moving people. Because every time you stand in a traffic light for 3 or 4 minutes, or maybe 2 or 3 changes of the light, you're putting extras gases into the atmosphere, creating more of a carbon for El Cajon, as they're trying to eliminate in the U.S., they say. But so these all cause problems when you limit the street size and everything too much.
Mr. McClellan, I'll just comment on that really quickly. I think it's important to note that if we were a city with no development whatsoever, sometimes these policies are really easy to implement because you can build roads to the correct width. But we're a built-out city for the most part. So a lot of this is trying to accommodate as many modes of transportation in that right-of-way that we have, knowing that we don't have money to expand the right-of-way through eminent domain and all those other tools. So whenever these projects or opportunities come up, there will be an analysis. And clearly, if the goal is to put in bike lanes, but doing so would create an already bad intersection and make it a failing intersection, then those things will be considered as part of the policy. So it's not just taking this policy and overnight or over even a few years just blanketly saying this will apply to every street. There is some process that goes into analyzing each segment that's brought forward, and the council will have that chance to analyze that specific segment and go, you know what, in this case, maybe that doesn't make sense to apply our smart policy here because of the impact it will have on the neighborhood. So I think you're right that you have to look at every street individually in the context of the policy, but also in the context of who's using it today and what kind of impact will occur if we were to narrow a lane or to eliminate a lane.
Well, I think that's the case on Washington because I remember when we put it in, and I've traveled Washington many times because I live on the east end of the city. I used to live in the county out that way, and we drive back and forth to the freeway going up Washington because it was a lot easier than just going down to 2nd Street and getting on the freeway. So I think there's a lot of traffic going out east using Washington, using Chase, and I hate to see that we're going to minimize the lanes of those because there'll be a lot of traffic backed up. I've been on them in the recent times, and there is a lot of traffic out in those areas on those streets. So I don't know if I can support this.
Yeah, Bob, I understand your concern about Washington and Chase. I do trust the staff's judgment that the fact that we get to look at this again on a case-by-case basis, it kind of alleviates some of my concerns. But if we take a look at the El Cajon Boulevard corridor and the Marshall corridor, that's an area where, if you recall, we just changed the zoning on to make it more residential. So you have residential up on top and some commercial down below, and make it very walkable. It reminds me a lot of Culver Boulevard in Culver City. I went there a couple years ago to visit my son, and there's a lot of traffic going on there, but they also it's also very pedestrian friendly. Lots of people down there, and as we get more people living, let's say in condos or apartments on El Cajon Boulevard when it's completely redeveloped, it'd be nice to keep them, to have them walk to some of the businesses and maybe cafes and things like that. So, and I don't want to leave any money on the table either. So, I just trust the judgment of the staff who are experts, and I trust the judgment of the city council in the future to take a look at these things and say, this may not be appropriate on Washington Street. That would be one that I would think, well, wait a minute. There's a lot of traffic on Washington, and it's not that wide. But El Cajon Boulevard is really, really wide.
I understand.
And then on Marshall Avenue, all that stuff eventually is going to be taken out. There's such a demand for residential right now, and we can have 4 or 5 story buildings and a nice walkable community and cafes, and probably a lot of students get on the trolley to San Diego State. So I think this is a good way to go to the future, and it's flexible.
Just so we look at it as a case-by-case basis, and we can make those decisions at that time. But I just want staff to remember that there's probably 90% of the traffic's in automobiles yet.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, Dirk, thank you very much. Actually, we've gone through all that, so it's back to us. If somebody would like to make a motion.
Move adoption.
Moved and seconded, please vote.
Motion carries by a 4-1 vote, with Councilmember McClellan voting no.
All right. Item 10 is for amended and restated wastewater disposal agreement. And staff, would you tell us about this, please?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, I want to thank Scott Tolick and Jerry Jones, Councilmember Jerry Jones from Lemon Grove, for he's also acting as the Metro Chair. He's here today to support, or they're both here today to support this in case you have any further questions after my presentation. But I just wanted to thank them for waiting and being patient, and appreciate that. So thank you for being here and supporting this. And I also wanted to thank our city engineer, Yasmin Ariano, for all of her support in helping prepare this item. The amended and restated wastewater disposal agreement with our wastewater JPA, that's Metro JPA. I'm going to attempt to kind of walk us through here so that we can understand exactly what is going on. Why do we need an amendment to the agreement? And so I'll kind of walk us through a little bit. The new agreement, it basically, we together with the participating agencies are trying to limit costs in the future of treating our sewage, is what it comes down to. And we're trying to get what's in the best interest of El Cajon residents. So when I say participating agencies, what does that mean? When we hear that word tossed around, it's our brothers in arms in the Metro JPA. And these are the cities right here that all transmit sewage down to Point Loma. Okay? So we can kind of get a view there. There's a few outlying unincorporated areas of the county. So if you take like Winter Gardens and Lakeside, Alpine, and East Otay, in Spring Valley, areas like that, if you combine that all together, that's one agency, the county. The county plus everybody else, there's 12 total participating agencies. Okay? And it all goes down to Point Loma. So this is the Point Loma wastewater treatment plant. It treats all of our wastewater. It goes all the way down there. Can you believe it? And once it gets there, it's treated to something called an advanced primary level. So when you're treating water, you can primarily treat it, secondarily, and there's a tertiary treatment level as well. But for the most part, the state of California, they want water. They say, well, water going out, because after they treat it, they pump it out to the ocean. And water going out to the ocean needs to be like secondary. However, the city of San Diego, a long time ago, got a waiver to that said you're allowed to treat it to advanced primary, which is pretty close to secondary. However, every 5 years, this waiver comes up. And so that waiver is being threatened by different groups, by the Coastal Commission, all these things. And so the city of San Diego, basically these groups are saying, this waiver is not going to go on forever. We need to figure out what to do in the future. So city of San Diego is trying to figure all this out. And what they're figuring out is that they want to treat some of this water and turn it into drinking water. Okay? And that program is called Pure Water. So back in El Cajon, we have two ways that the sewage leaves our city. One is through the city of La Mesa, that's the Alvarado trunk line, and to the north it goes through Mission Gorge, through Santee there, and that's like 95% of our flow goes that direction. That's just kind of give you a heads up that there's only two outlets for us, and the majority of it goes through that Mission Gorge Avenue. So back to the Point Loma wastewater treatment plant. After it all goes down there, the Alvarado line and the Mission Gorge line, they meet up and somehow get to Point Loma here. So they got to convert either this entire plant to secondary treatment and pray that they continue to get waivers is the other option. So they're trying to do this Pure Water program. Pure Waters, they have a phase one that's $1.388 billion. And that's for both the wastewater and the drinking water side of things. And phase two, they don't even know yet. What does that mean? It means that our cost, because they want us to share in this cost, our cost to treat our sewage is going to go up. That's what's going to happen. And so as participating agencies, we said, well, what if we just converted secondary? This pure water thing, that's your guys' dream. Why should we have to pay for that? And so this amended agreement states, one of the things that it states is we as participating agencies will never have to pay more than the cost to upgrade Point Loma treatment plant, which is $1.8 billion. Okay? Hopefully we never get there, but if at some point they're committed to do their pure water at $1.3 billion and rising for second phase, and if they don't achieve a waiver, San Diego could be on the hook for $1.8 billion plus 1.3 plus, right? And why would we want to pay a share of that when to accommodate what you needed and to treat our flow? Really, we don't have to do 1.8. I know I'm boring you. This is like crazy.
Sure.
It's late.
Sure. I wish you could go on and on.
Okay, thank you. I'm trying to keep it lively, right? I got the movement on the thing, and anyway. So I know, but it's like we gotta like make a decision here. So what we're trying to do is agree to sign this agreement, this amendment. Most of the other participating agencies have already done this, and so what it boils down to is the new amendment limits cost to a maximum of $1.8 billion. And what that means is no matter what, we're kind of darned if we do and darned if we don't. Costs are going to go up. It means rates are going to go up eventually for our citizens. They're going to have to because we have to pay for this. But we're trying to minimize this. We don't have many other options, but we'll get to that. It establishes flows based on 2050 projections. It ensures wastewater customers, that's what we're talking about today, do not pay for drinking water costs. That's what's in this agreement. That there's a line drawn and that everything on the drinking water side that City of San Diego residents are going to benefit from, that we don't pay for that as wastewater customers, okay? It provides for revenue sharing. Maybe. We'll see. But if there ever is revenue that this sewage produces as a commodity at some point, and when they start making $1 off it, there's revenue sharing in this agreement. So it's smart. And then it allows for other non-metro facilities to operate, meaning water purification programs. So kind of to wrap this whole thing up, which is one of the reasons why we're talking with Padre Dam and the county on our own separate advanced water purification. That's something kind of separate from this agreement, but it allows for us to actually have those conversations and allows us an off-ramp at some point. So that's my presentation today, and we're here to answer any questions. Did I get it all right? Okay. I got the thumbs up.
Nicely done, Dirk. Questions? Bob.
I understand we're in negotiation, and we have been with Padre Dam to purify our water to some extent, a portion of it. Why are we paying so much to San Diego if we're going to take some of this water and purify it ourselves and not go to San Diego at all?
That's an excellent question. And it's because we're playing both sides of the field. No, we have to really look at what's best for the residents. And right now we don't know. Padre Dam is giving us their best guess at numbers, but as we continue to refine them, we need to make sure that that is exactly where we need to go. Indications show us that it is going to be a good decision, but by any means, as I showed in the previous slide here, and this is what's important, we can never fully get out of Metro, the Metro JPA. And that's because we will always have this lower arrow on the screen of a portion of our flows going to Metro. And so because of that, we still have a vested interest, we still have a foot in the door, and we need to continue to act in good faith. Additionally, if things don't go according to plan with the JPA that's potentially being formed with Padre and the county, and potentially Helix Water, we need to consider all of our cards, and we can't close these doors at that time. So it's in our this agreement. It doesn't hurt us to approve it or to go along with it because, one, we still have a portion of our flow going that direction, but two, there is still a chance that all of our flow will be going that direction, and we don't want to close that door this time.
Well, wouldn't you said about 10% goes through La Mesa and 90% goes through Mission Gorge?
Yeah.
Do we have to sign the agreement now, considering the fact that we may have a separate deal with Padre that we pay for that as well as a $1.8 billion?
So, Mr. McClellan, so if we were to determine that the Advanced Pure Water Program through Padre Dam was more economical, then all that 90% of our contribution towards Metro would go away, and we would shift that to Padre. So our portion, we wouldn't be double paying, in other words.
We wouldn't be paying the $1.8 billion plus.
That is correct. That is correct.
And that's not just El Cajon's portion, the $1.8 billion. That would be for the county and
that 1.3 is actually divided amongst sewer payers and water rate users.
Right.
And then based on that, it's divided amongst all the participating agencies in the city of San Diego.
Yeah. Right.
Just for numbers, being the engineer that I am, out of the 1.388 billion that pure water is to cost right now, the PA's or the wastewater split is 542 million of it, and El Cajon would have 4.28 share of the wastewater costs for that. So it's and our percentage of the total PA's contribution is about 15%.
And as I was reading the agenda, it was about $77 million.
Yeah.
Over how many years?
To be determined. We get to set the terms.
Will it be acceptable to them? We say, well, we're not going to pay it till 2050. That wouldn't be acceptable to them, obviously, because they're going to lay out the money right away.
Well, they're financing it as well.
Yeah.
The agreement allows us to take an off-ramp to go to advanced water purification with Padre Dam. Is there a cost? Is there a toll on that exit, or can we just get out at no charge?
I don't want to misspeak, but Scott, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that there isn't like a penalty. So there is no penalty set up, but there will be charges that we have to foot the bill for our portion of still keeping a portion of our flow going to Metro. So that won't be eliminated completely.
To clarify then, if we're using the numbers, 90% through Mission Gorge, 10% through La Mesa, are you saying we would still be on the hook for the portion related to the 10% flow?
Correct.
So there is no early termination penalty, or you're taking less, you're putting more somewhere else, so we're going to penalize you and charge you $100 million because, whoops, you can just get out if you want.
No, the Mr. Chair is very kind, and we appreciate his camaraderie there. So there's no there's no penalty for that.
Okay,
but it is the reason why a decision on the East County project is so important sooner than later. Because if we were to pay, let's say 5 years, let's say we're going to analyze advanced pure water for the next 5 years, we'd be paying into the San Diego rate for 5 years and then pull out. We would not see that benefit.
That's right. Understood. Thank you.
Well, I'm the City of El Cajon representative on Metro Wastewater JPA. And first of all, I want to thank Lemon Grove Councilman Jerry Jones for his leadership in all this and taking a lot of time explaining all this very complicated data to me. It's probably one of the most complicated things I've ever looked at in my 20 years as an elected official. So again, thank you, Jerry. What I like about this is the flexibility that it gives us. We can still work with Padre Dam, and we find out that's a better deal. We can go 90% with them without any penalties and 10% with Metro. And it's really important when our citizens flush the toilet that it goes somewhere. And there's also the possibility that we can work something out with Padre if we can save money. So I've gone over this document many, many times. Jerry's explained a lot of it to me. Dirk, thank you so much for your help too. I'm comfortable with it. I spent a lot of hours looking at it.
Any other excuse me. Any other questions or comments? Just one question. What happens if the waiver that may not happen happens? So what if we get a reprieve on that?
Then the cost of updating the Point Loma treatment plant, the $1.8 billion, is not incurred. However, the pure water cost is still incurred. So we're not being kind of double dinged.
Can we opt out of the pure water program?
Not without opting out of having someone treat our sewage.
So we have
the answer's no.
We have no choice.
Yeah, unless we find another way to do it.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. All right. Angela, any speaker cards on this item?
No cards, sir.
Great. Bring it back to council. I appreciate Councilman Kendrick, who's done a lot of the homework on this, and thanks for your comments. It gives me some comfort. It is a very complicated situation. Any thoughts or somebody like to make a motion?
I'd move forward on it. Staff spent a lot of time. Gary spent a lot of time. I have a lot of faith in that. So I would move to approve.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
And thank you, gentlemen, for coming and being part of this tonight. And thank you, Dirk, for an excellent presentation. We appreciate it. All right, there are no commissioner reports today. Item 12 is my activities report and is as reported. We are at the activities report.
How about 11?
Did I miss something?
Yes, we had an item 11.
Oh, I'm so excited to be done.
You're
okay.
not done yet.
Well, I can help you with that because this is my item, and I'm going to throw out my 5 pages of presentation. I literally watched the minute hand in the reflection of my iPad go as Mr. Epperson was giving his presentation. So I know what it feels like.
Are you going to show us how it should be done then?
Should be done this way. You've read my agenda report. This is an item to try to make some changes to propose changes to Chapter 212 of our municipal code dealing with council procedures. The one thing I want that you to take away from this presentation is that the First Amendment needs to be monitored and needs to be respected in anything we do with our ordinances that might affect speech. We've attempted to do that in changes to Chapter 212. We've also made some cleanup measures in here. Some of the things were suggested by Council Members Colascio and Goebel in the past, and we're trying to address those. What I ask for you today is if you've reviewed it, if you have any other changes you'd like to consider. We aren't going to have a first reading tonight. We'll bring it back at the next meeting if you're ready at that time for any changes to the ordinance. I'm here to answer questions on this, the changes that are being proposed, and get into the nitty-gritty of the First Amendment if you need to, but I'll leave that for a responsive type of presentation.
Great.
As I read this, does this eliminate some public person coming up and speaking to an individual council member, or?
No, the present state of the ordinance is that you're supposed to address the entire council, or as opposed to individuals. What we've changed in that area is we haven't changed that. We've really continued to stop them from asking speakers to not address personally individuals, but to, again, address the presiding officer or address the council as a whole. And also we've inserted that not to address the public, so not to turn around and get into a debate with somebody who's just recently spoken, or have somebody from the audience start a debate with somebody who's at the rostrum trying to give their presentation or comments.
Well, I can relate to this because when I was first elected to the council, we used to have some person come in and address me for an issue that the council had voted on. But would that prevent that?
Well, as much as my gray hair may let people think I was here at that time, I'm not sure I was around. That's right.
Not in your lifetime.
No. No, I guess I'm not familiar with what happened back then, so it's hard for me to answer that question.
Well, I was kind of berated for allowing this to happen at the time because it was voted on by the council, but it was kind of my original idea.
Yeah, the public still has a right to criticize you, and any one of you or you collectively. But the whole point is they should be addressing the council. They shouldn't say, Mr. McClellan, you're a dirty, rotten scoundrel because you voted for that. Make the comment to the council and say, make them address the council as a whole instead of taking shots at individuals from the rostrum there.
And I think that's been done as late. So how are you going to prevent that from happening in the future?
Well, we have rules, and if they don't follow the rules, we try to get them to cooperate. One of the problems with the First Amendment is that it would be difficult for us to eject somebody just simply because they address something to Mr. Goebel instead of addressing the council, or Mr. Kendrick instead of the council. And we have had experience, and this is what Mr. Colascio had raised previously, where some people who are in here, as you know, directly addressing him and critical of him, and it wasn't on city business either. So some of the things we could do is try to control that better with rules, with a better enforcement or education of those rules as well. Giving warnings to these people that that's not allowed under our code. We're going to be serious about this. You address the city business. You don't address the individuals on their personal business.
And we had one individual that used very vulgar language. And do we have right to eject him then, or what do we have?
Not
right
for the mere use of the language. Profanity, as one newly elected congresswoman used in her opening speech,
I saw that.
is something that will occur, and the courts have said you have to accept that. The critical issue is whether that language or that action or that speech or that conduct actually disrupts the meeting. Not potentially, not theoretically, not imaginary or hypothetically. It is something that would actually stop the business of government. And that's where we have that chance to make this change to make certain that our ordinance is not challenged on a facial challenge, because there may be a fear that we're using it to stifle speech. What it is it's going to be clear that if somebody stops the business of government, we have the right to stop them and have them removed from the council chambers.
Okay.
Well, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to do anything that has a chilling effect on the public's right of free speech. Each one of us at one time or another has been chewed out by a member of the public. That kind of comes with the territory when you're an elected official. And I guess now they go through the mayor to chew us out. But I also think it's important that the people that are speaking up there, that they are not harassed by other members of the public. I don't want their speech to be abridged in any way because someone out in the audience starts yelling at them or calling them names. So I think this covers everything pretty well.
Yeah, that we attempted to address that, or would attempt to address that. For instance, if somebody felt that they can't participate as a member of the public because somebody's either taking too much time, they're being redundant or repetitive, they're being abusive with their language, and somebody becomes so highly offended that they now say, I can't even stand it, I can't come in here and talk to the council. You know, that theoretically, that's something we would consider as possibly being an actual disruption, because it's disrupting a person, a Joe citizen's right to speak on the same issue if they can't stand listening to the vulgarity, the very, very offensive language, perhaps. But in that case, it could be a situation where we take a cool down period. You know, that the mayor, as a presiding officer, asks for a recess and says, we just can't have that continuing. Let things cool down. Bring it back in and bring the public back into the meeting after a brief recess. Give warnings, things of that nature. And that's part of this ordinance change too, is to delineate or describe different powers additional powers that the mayor or the presiding officer would have to try to address those issues.
And I think it's important that the public knows that giving their address before they speak is optional, because I think that's another thing that could have a chilling effect, because some people that are up there may think, oh, there's going to be some retribution. Something's going to happen to me because I spoke or criticized something or had an opinion that someone here in this audience or up here didn't like.
Right. Now, again, that's one of the changes that we've made, is to eliminate the need to state your name and address. They can do it voluntarily, but we shouldn't have it in an ordinance that says you must do it.
And I think maybe on our speaker slips we should put that down as completely voluntary.
Yeah, I think we do already. The address is being voluntary. Although these are public records, if they decide to put it on there, then somebody can ask for a copy.
Yeah, they should be made aware of that also. If you put down your address, it's a public record.
Right.
Okay. Bob and Steve.
The reason to my colleagues on the council, the reason why I brought this up is during public comment time, that is the public's chance to address all five of us without a Brown Act violation. It's their chance to vent, to compliment, to whatever they want to say, including profanity, that as long as it's not disruptive and causes an actual disruption. So what has changed in this to me is district elections. So now in my district, if somebody wants to come in and say, Mr. Goebel, you are not representing me very well, I think they should be able to address me personally because I am their district's person that they voted for. They didn't get to vote for anybody else. And so they should be able to criticize just me because that's the only person they got to vote for, other than the mayor, of course. And so I'm saying just during public comment time, not during other business, just during public comment time, the public should be able to address an individual member because it may be the person from their district, subject to the rules of decorum. And so with paragraph 4 and paragraph 6, I would like to see us allow the public to address individual members of the council because of that reason, subject to the rules of decorum and the presiding officer's management of the meeting.
Point.
All right, let's see if we have any speaker cards.
No card, sir.
All right, then it comes back to us.
You know, I think that Councilman Goebel makes a really good point in that what is proposed now is if they want to talk to me or say I'm doing something wrong, they say, Mr. Mayor, I think Gary Kendrick is doing something wrong. But I mean, that's just a formality. A lot of these people that come up here don't know that. And it's not kind of natural when you're mad at a particular individual to go through the mayor.
So, as a compromise, would you have a problem with asking permission to speak to the council member? And I can say, sure, as long as we follow some rules of decorum and have the ability to take it back at any time?
I think that's putting too much on the public. They don't know what these ordinances say or anything else, and they're going to talk.
I think we would say that. Okay, I see what you're saying. They start talking to Steve. I interrupt them and say, "No, you got to talk to me," and ask if you can talk to Steve. Okay, can I talk to Steve? Yes, you can talk to Steve.
I think so that's a little.
Yeah,
that's like being in kindergarten.
Yeah,
and
okay,
that's what would happen.
All right, so just as long as it's understood that if people start getting out of hand, I'm going to pull them back.
Pull the plug. Yeah.
Right, because you're the one that mayor runs the meeting. So if they do get out of hand, then it's your job to warn them.
If it gets out of hand, there's an actual disruption.
That's why. That's
so maybe the best way to put it, if there's a disruption at that point, then I'm going to intervene.
That's why you get the big bucks, Bill.
Yes.
And my proposal is limited to public comment time.
Let me ask our city attorney and city manager if you see any problems legally or administratively with the direction this is going.
None from me. I think the opening up the avenues of communication by allowing them to speak directly to individual council members is actually more harmonization with the First Amendment than telling the public they can't speak to you directly. So,
my only concern, and this is more of just a philosophical concern about district elections, ultimately. You'll hear that you represent these individuals. The reality is all 5 of you represent every single resident of El Cajon because you all vote on issues relating to El Cajon. So, Mr. Goebel, for example, if you're not the king of your district, you can't direct budget items specifically for your district. So an individual coming with a complaint from a district has to really appeal to the will or the graces of the city council to get things done. So that would be my only concern is that notion, that idea, does that balkanize the city or Or is that a more, as Mr. Foley said, is that just a more fair way to ensure the First Amendment? So that would be my only concern as we think this through. I would worry that we become divided into districts in the way we think about everything in El Cajon.
Well, basically, that's what the state has done to us. And I think Mr. Goebel's right, that he's going to be confronted by people in his district and said, I voted for you. I want you to bring this up to the council and get it done. And that's what we're going to see in the future because the state forced us into districts.
Steve was next.
I agree with Mr. Mitchell in saying we all represent everybody. We don't limit our responses to people. We answer questions from people throughout the city. We don't say, oh, you live in Fletcher Hills. You need to talk to your council member from Fletcher Hills. I'm out. We represent everybody. I'm expanding the free speech angle here for somebody to directly criticize me. So it's not me. It's not a representation issue. It is expanding the free speech of the speaker to criticize me because they are limited in who they can vote for, not in who I represent.
Yeah, I think it puts a little bit of a chilling effect when the speakers try to correct to say, speak to me, the mayor, not to the other people directly. And I think in natural conversation, you look at someone in the eye and you speak to them, and maybe it's something that they did you don't like, or maybe it's something they did that they do like. And then this takes away just one more barrier of the formality in the city council. We're all used to that, but the general public isn't. They don't, a lot of them are scared when they come up there. And I want to make them feel as comfortable as possible, say whatever they want to say that's on their mind.
All right, well, good points. Any other thoughts? Okay, that would seem to be the only...
Excuse me, Mayor, we just received a card, speaker card, if you'll allow it. Paul Cruz.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Happy New Year. I would like to make one comment regarding one portion of the presentation which has been made to amend this portion of the city municipal code. And this is at the end of the presentation where it mentions that regarding photography and news cameramen. I'm only here as a representative of East County Magazine as a contributing editor, and I don't speak for the other journalists. However, I would like to make the suggestion, however, that the people who would be allowed to take photographs would be necessarily having the accreditation from the city of San Diego as a media pass. And so everybody who is a legitimate member of the press is able to get this after being vetted, and I think that this would be the one suggestion that I would make regarding that point in the municipal code.
Right, Bob.
Well, I've seen private residents or private people do it, and they don't have a pass. They just want to video the meeting or a speaker in the meeting, and I don't know how that would affect that or whether we could stop them from doing that.
Bob, I think they're talking about this area right here. Is that what you're talking about, Mr. Cruz?
Yes.
So on the other side of the wall, and there's maybe some security issues there. We want to make sure that just members of the press, I think that's what he's talking about.
What specifically are you asking for, Paul?
That's simply that if there is going to be allowing us to take pictures, let's say from the bullpen, reasonably, that we would be, those who are having a true press accreditation.
What do you mean by the bullpen? You mean this area down here?
Yes, I always refer to that as the bullpen.
So then other public would be able to video from out in the other areas, but not from down here.
Correct. That's what I was actually addressing.
I'm guessing our city attorney has
The code currently doesn't permit anybody to come in here without the approval of the city council. That doesn't change. You could allow family members and relatives with the permission of the city council. If you'd like, you could say that with the permission of the presiding officer or the city council. If the presiding officer doesn't want to give that right to them, the city council can say, no, let's, as a collective group, we want the family to come here. The only change we made in that was to build into that an exception for the news media in the ordinance, so we didn't have to keep asking permission each meeting for somebody to be able to bring in a camera. Mr. Cruz bringing in his camera and taking a picture of people. Occasionally, he'd like to have it from a perspective that's a little further away than right in front of these people, I suppose. So that's the only change we made, was to allow news media without having to get permission at each meeting. If you're going to open that up to anybody else, the city council can give that permission, but we might want to change that to the presiding officer or the city council.
Well, I think the point that Mr. Cruz is bringing up is when you say news media, how do you delineate who is in the media?
Well, if you want to go by accreditation from some source, I don't know what those are myself. Even though I'm the son of a journalist, I don't know what that is. It could be local, it could be national, it could be international. I don't know exactly how we would want to describe that, but we could look into that and see if there's a definition.
Why don't we kick that back to staff, have them see what's done in other municipalities and what's the standard in the community, and come back to us with a recommendation. Would that be okay? Okay with staff? Okay with council? Okay with Paul?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll go from that. All right, so we are productive afternoon. We've hashed it all out. Any other concerns that we should look at, things we should discuss? If not, I'd like somebody to make a motion.
You want to bring this back then, or do you want to?
What's that?
You want to vote on it now, or you want to bring it back?
I don't have it on here for voting. We'll bring it back at the next meeting with a marked up version that addresses all the comments were made and those that are implied.
Just want to make sure we didn't want to send anything else back to council or back to staff. I think you got it, staff. Thanks very much. Okay. Now, I'm going to this part that I went before. There are no commissioner reports today. Item 12 is my activities report, and it is as reported. Councilmember Kendrick.
As reported.
Councilmember McClellan.
As reported.
Councilmember Kalasho.
They are as I've reported them.
Deputy Mayor Steve Goebel.
As reported, and I do have a comment. Yesterday morning, down Broadway, there was streets resurfacing on Ballantyne, and as a result, I believe it was a contractor had reduced traffic down to one lane, and I happened to get stuck in the back end of that. Traffic was close to a block long from Ballantyne up to, I think it is Mollison. And it was pretty bad, 8 o'clock in the morning, and so I was at the back of this line, and the signal was only letting through maybe 5 to 10, closer to 10 cars at that. This was on my way to a meeting, and so that was 5 till 8. I emailed the city manager saying, here's the situation, can you check into this? He had staff out there, within probably a half an hour at most, and they adjusted the signal to let more cars through, so that by the time my meeting was done at 9 o'clock, the traffic was down to almost normal levels, which was just an incredible response for the people who were driving down Broadway. That's just excellent service for the public. Something well done, and it probably even averted a 911 call to the police saying, hey, you got to come do something about the traffic out here on Broadway. So kudos to the staff for a quick response and an effective solution. Thank you for the people of El Cajon.
Excellent. All right, there are no joint council member reports and no general information items for discussion. There are no first readings of ordinances. Item 17 is the second reading and adoption of an ordinance amending the El Cajon Municipal Code addressing dockless vehicles, and we've already done that, so I'm going to stop and move on. And we have no closed session on today's agenda, so this brings us to adjournment. The regular joint meeting of the El Cajon City Council and El Cajon Housing Authority, held this 8th day of January 2019, is adjourned until Tuesday, January 22nd, 2019 at 3 o'clock p.m. Thank you very much.